I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Luke, if you lead us in prayer, please. Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we come here today to discuss business, God, and to hear what's going on in the county. Lord, we just ask for your wisdom, your discernment. Lord, we ask for your peace and calmness and discussion. And Lord, I just ask that you be with the commissioners and speak to them and help them discern what's best for the county. Lord, we just thank you and we praise you in your Son, Jesus Christ's holy name we pray. Amen.
Minutes. Any questions, corrections, comments?
Move to approve.
Second. Concur. Claims. Any questions?
Move to approve. I will second.
No. Concur. Payroll. All got it. Email to you. Any questions on it?
Move to approve. Second.
Mark Mobile.
Give you an update on a few of our projects we talked about in the past. Continuing a big culvert project, actually a double barrel culvert on 800 East has been demoed out, getting ready to put it back together. It's been closed for quite a while with some work that Duke had to do before we moved in there, so it's going forward. We talked a lot about Bridge 73 on 150 with some road alignment, bridge alignment. Those beams are set to be set at the end of this month, so that's progressing forward. We'll give you an update on our community crossing grant from 2021-1. We've got three of the five projects completed, which is the 200 West project down south, Millhausen Road from one end to the other is complete, and also 480 off of 421. Paving's all done, driveways have all been dressed up, but there will be some shoulder work in the future in August, some shoulders. Right now, they've moved up north to 800 and 480 or 550 up by Lake Santee, which will be done in 2 or 3 days. So that's going forward very well. Another thing we'd like to ask, we are in the process of going to have to replace a foreman. We would like to ask Mark if he would be willing to be on a committee for interviewing foremen. And basically the reason I took Mark is it's basically for down south, the South District. We'd like to put a committee together, advertise it in-house, see if we've got any interest in-house, and go through the interview process. It's sort of like we did with Todd Greg. If you want to do that, help us and here's my eyes on what's going on. Last thing I have for you is I'd like to entertain a motion. We've got Bridge 131 that we've done all our paperwork and our scoring, and United was the high score. We've submitted that to NDOT, and NDOT said it was okay for us to go ahead and put our contract together, and they gave us that notice last week. We're wanting pre-approval to chase you guys down sometime over the next week for signatures on a contract, which is the same boilerplate that Bree puts out that you signed last week on a construction contract for $480,000, not to exceed, for Bridge 131, and that's preliminary engineering for a federal aid project.
131's one in town.
131 is the one west of Vernon.
Okay, that's the big iron.
Yes.
Okay.
The one you signed last week was the one over by the junior high school, and that was for the construction inspection. But the deadline is they need to be submitted by the 1st of September, so we're sort of in crunch time. And I think NDOT's hoping a lot of people won't get that contract in on time because they're over budgeted, and thinking about people out of the way, it's going to help out. So if you guys would so do that, I could chase you down and get signatures and be able to go forward without another meeting.
Okay, motion approved. United Consultants contract for not to exceed $480,000 on Bridge 131.
So left.
Second.
I'll concur.
once I get that in hand, then I'll coordinate with you guys where I can meet up with you and at least get 2 signatures. I'll try to get all 3 of them as possible. We can do that. That's all I've got to.
Thanks. Can't change your mind yet?
I don't know, I told Mark I'd like to stick around, but I want to see basically how everything else works in here.
Welcome to do so.
No, I haven't changed my mind yet.
Kristen?
The only thing I have for you is, we have an APC meeting tonight at 7:00. And there's just 2 petitions on this, the agenda, so it should be pretty short.
Okay, I have a question. The property that, I don't know if she's in here, Mrs. Dietrich, was here last meeting asking about that property in St. Louis.
Oh, yes.
Do we have any regulations on shooting range?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's lots of regulations on a shooting range.
Well, the
Absolutely.
guy next door said he has no qualms with them buying that. Property separates our property. But he said he would like for us to look into that going on that property. So
You can shoot on your own property.
can you invite people in to shoot? He said there's as many as 10 or 15 at a time.
Yeah, there's fine line there, yeah, we can look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know. anything
Before we
about
agree
that.
to sell that, we need to do a little investigating on that. If you don't mind. Anything else?
That's it.
Kenny?
Good morning, gentlemen. Since our last meeting, I had 39 inspections, 10 new building permits and plan reviews, 3 permit renewals, had 2 red tags, 1 on a meter base inspection, the wires were connected to the wrong lugs. Owner corrected the violation. Second was on a final inspection, owner needed GFI receptacles in the garage and carbon monoxide detector in rooms with gas-fired appliances. The furnace and gas cook stove. I sent letters on the complaint to the Vernon residents. Still need to visit their residence on 1050 West, where Sheriff Durant told me of a complaint of vehicles, unlicensed vehicles. Had another complaint about a plumbing issue at one of the schools that I need to investigate. The guy called me this morning, so I'll have to look into that. State Fire Marshal, see if he wants to meet me down there. That's all I have.
Anything on that? Rodney, what, I don't remember what that road number was, Mark. What's that road number there, Rodney? Goes
850.
850. Send anything out? Been out there?
I did send a letter. I stopped in there, left my card in the door, and sent him a letter.
Okay. You guys have anything?
No.
Thank you. Mindy?
Yes. All right, the sheep, we have, Dr. Martin got a hold of the state vet. And when the sheep are moved, they need to be tagged. And it is for, they have to be tagged so that they can be tracked where they all go. And then also there is a list of, like slaughterhouses that I do believe the way it reads, that they don't have to be tagged if we send them there. So, and if you guys made a final decision on what we want to do to dispose of them, or to sell them, what we're gonna do.
Doug, do you want to address, anything new on that?
Yeah, it's very new. Doug Brown, Chief Deputy Prosecutor. I was in a grand jury Friday afternoon and there were several motions filed I haven't even caught you guys up on. There was a motion to stay the disposition of the animals. The animals are not technically in the custody of Decatur County yet, so he's premature taking the action on that. There's been a motion to transcribe the oral probable cause for the taking of the sheep, which is fine. And there's been a motion to compel discovery, which is fine. We can get that to them as well. Judge Bailey has stepped out of the case, appointed a special judge out of Shelby County who declined. And there's a pending appointment of a new special judge with a hearing at 10:30 tomorrow. So this is very fluid. It will change by noon of where we're at. So I think the plan right now should be for the county to determine, and this may be a council issue, we may have to come up with some money to pay the R Rescue for the housing of the sheep, pending a determination by a special judge what to do with them. So like I said, it's a very fluid issue, and to take any action with regard to this position, making decisions, it's too preliminary. You have to be careful because it's pending litigation. There's two issues. One is he's charged with the crime, he's presumed innocent, of course, in that. And then there's the taking of the sheep. And Mr. Hamilton had a small claims judgment entered against him in April of 21 for over $7,500 in this. So I can't tell you, I understand why they're doing all this when the likelihood of getting reimbursed to the caretakers, whether it's Decatur County or through RRR, is in question, but they are. They have every right. So I think that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
So, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I looked at the same motions and I have my own opinion, but I want yours too. Feels like his attorney has a very strange and inaccurate reading of the statute where he can file all the motions he wants, he can have whatever hearings he wants, but the 10 days post-performance bond is a set time, isn't it? Like, that's my reading of the statute. Now, granted, forfeiture and disposition, I think, become separate issues, but that's a known date in my mind that regardless of what he files, come tomorrow, it is or it isn't, and the forfeiture moves forward, whether or not we should dispose becomes more of a hot potato, but that's the way I read it. Do you think the same?
I agree with your reading of the
Okay.
statute.
I read his motion and I thought he was just flat wrong, but I mean, not to be blunt, but that's was my takeaway. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something.
I agree with your reading, but, judges do what the judges do. So,
Well, sure.
yeah, I agree. I 100% agree with Chad.
Okay.
Yes.
So we really can't make it, or don't need to make a decision until after tomorrow's hearing?
I think Mindy's right in that if or when the sheep transfer to Decatur County, a quick disposition, I think is a great idea. But it's very fluid right now.
Okay.
And then just in follow-up, I spoke with the field director or whatever for State Board of Animal Health on Thursday or Friday late, I think it was Friday. And I just wanted to clarify an email she had sent to Doug about disposition if it transfers. She just gave us a very generic humane. So I talked through with her what we were proposing and what our hopes were if all this went to plan. And the state backs our plan and our play unequivocally. So they are fine with immediate moving. That really is a covering their own backside type statement. Not tell somebody they can do whatever they want to the animals, but mainly leeches. But we are free to move them off the dirt lot. We are free to move them to any vendor that we see fit if and when we become the custodians of the animals. So we have their blessing across the board.
So if they don't go to market according to this, they don't go to market, they have to be tagged. We do have a buyer in the waking, depending tomorrow's hearing. So
Right, and yes, it would have to be tagged, and I think they would have to, buyers would have to
provide the tag.
follow up with tagging and permitting. It was another term that the state explicitly used, was that as well. And I think not much in this world, but I believe those are two separate things that will need to be addressed.
We'll deal with that if the time comes. Same page as you. Any questions?
Nope.
You don't need any pasture out there. You got any pasture? Sheriff Durant.
I think there were some questions that were raised by Commissioner Emsweller about our commissary. I think these questions have probably been asked over, a period of time. And we had a little bit of email banter back and forth, and I want to apologize to Commissioner Emsweller because of the ambulatory concerns. I realize it's difficult for you to get over there and come over to our facility. That's not an easy thing. So this is a great venue to do it out in public, so a lot of questions get answered. On the commissary, I think I provided you the statute. I think you're all familiar with the commissary statute. So I probably don't need to go over that. Some of the things that they're used for, it's up to you if you want me to make those, anybody can have access to those. But basically the commissary, when I took over, I'll just give you an explanation on how it went from, and you can take a look at the year progression there. In 2018, commissary swept about $82,000. That's for the entire year. In 2019, 87,000. I was just a new sheriff. And then when Commander Parker came on board, I actually, this wasn't really an idea that I actually came up with. This was actually Sheriff Cumberworth from Ripley County on how they did their commissary. And so he asked us to come down and look at the commissary, so we did. And then we actually modeled our commissary after their commissary. Basically, we created a business model. Commissary, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, basically it's kind of like a bookstore for those who are my age or around that age would understand the old bookstore in the school. You could go and get additional things for while you're at the school. It's for the inmates. So we have a state mandated inmate or a state mandated commissary that all the inmates, if they're indigent or if they're not indigent, they are entitled to. This kind of gives us an opportunity, and this is a fund that is not, it is absolutely separate from the general fund, and it also the money fund does not revert over to the general fund, and that's by statute. And we can use that money for a myriad of things. I could go down the list, but it can be everything that we basically purchased, and we make lots of purchases out of the commissary, which is an offset to the county as far as tax dollars. Because if not, honestly, I would have to put that in my budget and try to fight for that budget time. And everybody knows how tight that is, and we're back at budget time again. Just to give you an idea, I think I provided, or Ashley provided a list in 2021. We spent about $209,000-ish. Those are large. These are basically these are a summation. This isn't everything. These are just a summation of the large purchases that we do use to offset county tax dollars. In other words, even in the commissioner's budget. In that year, we had 2 vehicles. That's just in 2021. We actually paid for the maintenance supervisor's salary out of that, which actually, it doesn't matter where it comes out of. It's got to come out of somewhere. So we took care of that. That actually was an offset for almost $50,000. It was out of tax burden for the county. We actually purchased ammunition. We used to mow the grass or used to have the grass mowed. That was $10,000 a year. That's what we could pay a service. They did a great job. It was $10,000 a year. Once we put a maintenance person on board, we actually bought a zero-turn mower out of commissary. So essentially the inmates and the inmates' families paid for that lawnmower, which then again saved us $10,000 a year as far as tax dollars. So we did that. There are all kinds of things, bulletproof vest, RFID, which is our scanning. If you're from the hospital, if folks are from the hospital, they understand that scanning device. So every one of our inmates wears a wrist tag with a picture on it and a barcode, and all of our deputies, all our detention deputies go in and scan so we don't give you the wrong medicine, the wrong food, all of that stuff, and that is actually a savings. But that's about $15,000 a year. And I think originally we paid $25,000. 32,000 we paid for that originally, and that has actually helped a lot with liability, because that's basically just a liability. We had a cash counter. We take so much cash. We got a cash counter, and that's also because oftentimes we get counterfeit bills. So we spend a lot of money on a cash counter that actually would detect those things. We pay for traffic cameras every year out of commissary. Those traffic cameras assist us in anybody coming through our county that may be wanted on a warrant nationally, and that has actually netted quite a few arrests. And those are throughout the county. We pay for those. There was a hydraulic lift we paid for in 2021. You go to 2022 right now, You can look at, we've purchased a portion of a 2021 Dodge Ram truck, vehicle marking, COVID stipend, the entire COVID stipend on both. We did, I think, 1 year, and then we finished up with the other. It was all paid for out of commissary. That was not tax dollars. We paid for that out of commissary. So radios, detention center, and of course our programs director, and that's exactly, if you look at the statutes, that's one thing that you put in there is your substance abuse and or your programs director. That comes directly out of there. So that is, in my opinion, probably one of the most important aspects we have of our detention center is that it are the programs that we have to try to reduce recidivism in the county, and that comes out of there. The one question that I probably get from citizens the most are, what are you doing for my loved ones while they're in here? I think we even had a deal, it might have been before Commissioner Emswell was here, where someone came in before we turned the TVs on. We hadn't quite have everything. We didn't quite have anything up and running yet. And they were complaining that they didn't have a new deck of cards in there. Well, we're not going to just let inmates sit in there and play cards and do nothing. Everything we do inside that facility is actually to help to move them to a better place, hopefully so that they can be offended. So, and that's from the second they come in that facility. So the program director and all the expenses with that, again, the inmate families that put that money on those books on that commissary, that helps pay for that. And we're actually doing something and investing back in those people so that hopefully they become, again, taxpayers and not tax drainers. So this year we've spent $120,000 already. The other items that have not been spent just yet, but Minute Maids, we just our janitorial services are $13,000 a year. We pay for that out of commissary. Gloves, we spent $1,500 a month on gloves. You can imagine, because every time you put your hands on an inmate, you got to have a pair of gloves on, and then you have to discard it. So that's, that's almost $18,000 a year we pay just in rubber gloves. That's paid for out of commissary. New patrol vehicle, and then of course our MiFi, which our deputies have in our cars. When they arrest prisoners, they have to have that MiFi in order to work on the CAD system. That's about $12,000 a year as well. So those are some extra expenses on the outside that we pay for. If you look at our commissary and what we've swept, and I'm going to let Dana Parker, Commander Parker, he's probably going to answer your questions better than I can, because how it actually works is Commander Parker actually does the physical portion of the commissary and whatnot, and the kind of boots on the ground, and then Supervisor Ashley Wilson does the setting up of the State Board of Accounts, and I'll let her explain how that occurred. So we went from 2019, and then you can see the 2020. Our jump went from 87,000 was the most that we swept, and that was, then you go back 82, and then you go back 2017, and it's about the same, around 79,000 there. Then you go to 2020, we swept 296,000, so almost $300,000. We went up because we changed the commissary into a business model, and we went off of basically what the Ripley County model was, which is pretty favorable down there for his constituents as well. 2021. We swept $533,000, so $500,000 we went and to offset that. So and then this year so far, just 2022, I just added that. Commander Parker gave that this morning. To date this year, we swept $300,000. We're actually a little slow right now because we're downing inmates inside the commissary. So any questions you have that you prepared, and I'm gonna probably let Dana or Ashley answer those questions.
So you've been very transparent on what you spent the money on.
Yes, sir.
That's commendable. What I'm trying to get to the bottom of is, how did you get from the 87,000 to the 296? So the supplies that you purchased that are sold to the inmates, are those supplies funded out of the commissary fund?
Well, so I will let Dana Parker, I'll let Commander Parker be able to explain better. Go ahead and go.
Basically, if you understand the entire commissary system, we pull the money from multiple locations. One is phone use, one is video visits use, one is what we call tripping, which is texting, and then
Right.
the actual sales of product, which is the biggest number.
Yes.
Well, what I did when I took over is I looked at the way we were doing it. Everything was being bought from a company called CPC. They were supplying all of this stuff. We were on a fixed margin. They controlled all the pricing, all the availability, that type of thing. I went over the entire list, picked out the items that were, if you will, used the most, repriced a lot of them on functional pricing, your standard model of supply and demand. We took a look at that, and I shopped around where I could purchase the product at the best price. And that's exactly how we handled it. So we brought the largest portion of our sales in-house, where we do all the inventory. We purchase in bulk. Ramen noodles is our number one seller. That comes in by the skid load. We buy over 1,000 a week of the ramen noodles, just because it's a favorite of everybody's. And that's how we did it, is we controlled what we purchased, where we purchased it from, and what we were selling to the inmates.
So the question is, what fund are those supplies purchased from?
All of that is purchased out of the commissary fund.
It wasn't very obvious as I went through the last 6 months where those purchases were made. That's where the question came
You'll
from.
see the Custom Technologies, Keefe, and CPC are the biggest three invoices you will see in there, and that is the commissary material. That is the stuff we sell.
Okay,
Keefe is where I buy all of my potato chips, ramen noodles, that kind of stuff was from Keefe. The e-cigarettes, the nicotine pouches and stuff are bought from Custom Technologies, and those are some of our biggest sellers right there. And then CPC is where we do the phone, the other commissary there's a lot of weird stuff. The commissary list is about 700, maybe roughly, items long that they can purchase from. We only pick out the top. I think we have about 25 that we sell out of inside, but every bit of it is purchased with commissary money. And then you'll see that in the receipts. You'll see those names. Those are the biggest names right there.
so your monthly profit sweep typically runs between $30,000 and $40,000
Yes.
in the last 6 months.
And about 8,000 of that, 5,000 to 8,000 of that is the phone and the chirping devices. And the video.
That's included in that
Yes, that sweep is all of that.
because they're listed separately.
Well, they're listed
On the
separately on the
report.
spreadsheet we supplied you, but I consider that in the totals because that is the income.
But the total, so the profit sweep is the total including those, even though they're listed separately and documented separately?
Yeah, the totals include that, but it is documented. Now, keep in mind, when we talk about profit sweep, that is not, those are dollar sweeps. We take that money and then we have to pay the invoices.
I understand. But that should be reflected in the report as well.
Yes.
So they should be counterbalanced.
Well, it is reflected in there. It is on the spreadsheet as a separate line item. When I did the totals that I gave the sheriff, I totaled them together, but it is on the spreadsheet every single month. It is listed individually as the individual item of where it was swept from. Yes, it is all.
So as we look at those sweeps, you're saying that the chirping, the phone video is part of that. In the grant, the 1 month you received a $4,000 grant, was that included as part of that same total?
It is included in there.
So you're double reporting your incomes.
No, I don't follow what you're saying. Okay, the numbers come off the spreadsheet.
Yes.
They're detailed on the spreadsheet. When I gave the sheriff numbers, I just added all those together because
That's
we
the
were looking at
total.
what the sweep was.
That's the total of everything
But
out
we're
of
not
there.
double reporting anything. The spreadsheet is the law. It is what is fact. Any numbers we give you is taken from that spreadsheet.
Right.
And if you'll total up all those numbers, the sweeps for the chirping, for the phones, and the commissary, you'll find that totals to the numbers that we just gave you. But it is reported separately on the spreadsheet, yes.
So on average then, that says that your $30,000 to $45,000, the chirping and video runs approximately 5,000 of that, so that takes it down to 25 to, let's say, $40,000. But I figured without understanding that that was a roll up because it looked like it was individually reported, if you had 30 inmates, which would be a full jail, and we know you don't have that many, 30 days a month, and the month that you accumulated 45,000 in the sweep, that each inmate would be spending an average of $6.51 per day, every inmate, to reach that amount of money. So take $5,000 off, you're going to be down to probably about $575, I would guess. And that seems a little bit exorbitant based on what I've seen is expense, even looking at what you're saying, you know, the Roman noodles, this kind of stuff is out of there, what kind of markups are you charging on that?
We took under the old system, basically, we're working on a fixed 35% margin that CPC determined, and they determined the pricing. Under the new model, we're roughly 60% margin right now. On in-house, we still are 35% on the stuff that we get from CPC.
I'd like to look at the detail of the expenses for supplies and see if that calculates out, because it seems a little bit exorbitant to me.
What's exorbitant? 60% or the number?
The number, I was at 60% is fine. I just don't see that that's gonna add up to the $25,000 to $40,000 a month that you're sweeping profits.
Well, that's the information that, like, when we invited you over, it's hard to show you on, but we have all that information. It's on lockdown, which is the trust fund that we use. The money comes in, we don't actually handle the money ourselves. It's not put in our bank account. There's a thing called the inmate trust fund. We use a software called Lockdown. The money is deposited direct into Lockdown, either when they come in, if they have money on them, that is put into their trust account, or their families put money on the outside into their trust account, either via the kiosk we have in the lobby, vestibule, and or through the computer software on the internet. Once that money is in the trust fund, then they can use that money from there as they want to, as long as they have it, and they place the orders or they use the phone, that type of thing. All that is in Lockdown and can be shown that we don't ever actually handle that money per se as cash in our hands. It's locked into that account. We don't have access to that per se.
So the video side of it, as times are moving forward, there's more and more video for court appearances.
Those are no charge. There's
Okay.
nothing involved in charge.
Very good, very good.
That is paid for by the courts as far as they have the account.
In the past, in these meetings, the sheriff has made comment that if an inmate would happen to clog a toilet, break a sink, that their personal commissary account is charged for that. Is that still true?
Not for breaking, if normal use of stuff, like the buttons on the toilets.
If they destroy it.
I mean, we don't have any problems with anybody because they're very well built. They will wear out. We pay for those, not out of commissary, that comes out of the general budget. We don't collect for it. We do not charge an inmate for standard wear and tear of stuff. The clogging of the drains or the toilets, we do because our maintenance gentleman has to go in and pull them. There's no real cost to it other than the labor cost. There's really hardly any cost to it because he's there anyway. It's a deterrent. When we first started having this problem, when I started charging for that, guess what we don't have a problem with anymore? I probably don't charge, it's lucky, once a month now, $50 to clean the toilet out because. So it was more a deterrent to protect our new facility.
And that was just for clogged drains.
Yes.
That was my misunderstanding. So I
And just
apologize for
because
that.
we charge the inmates doesn't mean we get paid back.
Well.
Most of our inmates are indigent,
Sure.
so after they're out of our facility, if 60 days go by and they don't do any other crimes, don't get put back to the facility, that's money that we eat. It all just wipes off their books after 60 days.
Well, my concern there was, my interpretation was if they broke a toilet or a sink, that we paid for it out of general funds because I approved those. And then if you were collecting, it's like, I don't see anything coming back.
And that would be valid. One of the things that I did charge for that was a break, we had 2 windows broken.
Sure.
And those theoretically are non-breakable windows. $980 to have Poly Jail replace them. Maintenance gentleman and myself, Greg and myself looked into that. We were able to buy plexiglass window that's even stronger and better for $53 locally. We bought that out of commissary. Greg installed them. So we spent, the inmate essentially were paying for that repair rather than us having to come to you for $1,000 to repair it. So there have been a few little things like that, but it's easier for us to come, rather than charge you for something that I run out and buy quickly from Travelers or whoever, it's easier to do it out of commissary sometimes.
And when you see property damage, I know it's easy to think automatically buildings and structures, but property for inmates includes blankets, mats, pillows, uniforms. They'll write on their shoes, things like that. And that's all stuff that we pay for out of commissary. So when we charge them and we get reimbursed for that, it goes to the suite.
property damage is a generic term we use in there, but, popular for them to try to cut their blankets in half. And when we do laundry exchange, they'll turn it in half, get a blanket. The next time they'll turn it the other half, get a second blanket type thing. So we find that when we discover them hand us a half a blanket, guess what happens? They get charged. We have fixed prices. In the case of that kind of stuff, we have very, very minimal markup just to cover freight and handling. We don't charge the 60% margin.
Right.
So those are just really replacements. We charge you replacement cost on items like uniforms, if they tear a uniform, or we've had a number of them tear up their mattresses thinking that was a cool thing to do. Well, it's cool until you pay the $125 for the
Sure.
mattress. That we buy all of our mattresses out of commissary.
So I'm thinking if you could give me 1 month, pick one, and highlight the expenses that were your bulk purchases for the commissary supplies that you sell. And your number of inmates that I can calculate, and balance that out, I'd be a happy camper.
I printed this in July, so it's probably June's report.
Okay.
This is a typical list of the commissary that comes in from CPC. You can see how long it is. And that particular month, commission sales from CPC was $1,273. We get 35% commission of $445, roughly, or 45.65. The same time, in-house sales were $3,519. Cost, I went back on this particular one and I looked up every order, told what we sold and what our cost was on those. We cost $1,377 and we ended up with a $2,141 profit that particular. And I said month, this was a week, I'm sorry, this was 1 week sales, not a month, this was 1 week. So that was exactly how I look at it, and that turns out to be a 60% gross margin, which is what I set up the pricing, so my model worked, it turned out that way. So that's exactly a typical month.
So in 1 week,
Sorry, 1 week, it's a typical week.
and your sales were
I
$3,519.
didn't make a copy of this, but it's handwritten down here. This is the sales, these are all the sales to CPC.
Right.
35%. This was what our total sweep was of that. This is the inmate set, you taking this out. This was internal sales in-house.
Mhm.
That was our cost. And I went back and looked up every single item that we sold. And this is what our net profit was on that 1 week. Now, this does not include, this numbers do not include the chirping
Right,
or the
right.
video. This is strictly the commissary items.
Right, so as I'm looking at June, your spreadsheet, chirping was 2672.92, phone was 4155.35, so $6,845. Your profit sweep was 30,130, so let's round that up. 23,000 is what you made in commissary sales. So you're telling me this week was,
That was a fairly low week, but it was just one I grabbed. They vacillate very heavily on what they are.
They're not consistent
They're not consistent.
because our inmate population goes up and it goes down. It also goes up on what they buy 1 week and what they don't purchase the next week.
We get our commission statements from CPC, basically it breaks down everything that they charge, what our commission is, and what our.
right, I've got no question with chirping in the phone.
And then I can actually, there is a report I can pull to show you what we actually sweep, every month. This is everything that's involved in the sweep. So commissary and indigent fund, so indigent kits when they come in, they're gonna indigent kit that we charge $17 for, if you put it on the commissary. Obviously, sometimes the initial intake kits, their inmate property, so if we have to store property for them, there's a lot of inmates, we have one who has, I think he has over 100 books right now. We can't allow them to keep that in a box, so
Right.
we charge them for that storage. That also gets paid to commissary, but then commissary is what pays for, you know, the materials to store it and all of that. On-site sales is what Dana was discussing with actual like extra foods, coffee, peanut butter, things like that. Photocopies, we actually purchase several cases of paper out of the commissary fund every year, as well as part of our two-sheeter contract is paid out of the commissary fund. So that we're not paying for ink, printing supplies, anything like that, that we're using for inmates, we're not paying for that out of the general, it's coming out of the commissary. And then property damage, which we discussed, was like mats, you know, uniforms, things like that. So that's what comes out every month in our sleep. And that is a report generated by a lockdown, according to what is bought, what is charged. And then we have a separate suite that's called the medical suite that does go into the inmate medical fund in the general account. And that is what the co-pays that the inmates are charged for CPR.
That's separate to commissary.
That's separate to
Yes.
commissary.
Also to note that the original fund was set up by the State Board of Accounts. So basically we went exactly on what the recommendations of the State Board of Accounts were.
So we do upload our monthly engagements, also everything that's in that binder, we upload to Gateway every year. And then at the end of the year, we upload a monies dispersed, monies, you know, took in. We upload that to Gateway, and State Board of Accounts does audit our funds every year.
It's an indicator of them auditing us and how closely they look at it. They question, they sent an email actually questioning why the trust fund only in 2020, I think it was, trust fund only went up 28%, but commissary receipts went up 91%. And they were
So-
asking how, and that's because of the way we are modeling the sales now.
So you went to this new business model, what year again? 20,
Basically, I started looking at 2019 when I first joined.
Right.
And then 2020.
implemented in 2020.
Now,
It
when we
was a slow
move into
we were moving into new jail, so it was
Right.
a slow implementation, and
the old facility, didn't allow us the storage room that we needed.
So logic would signify that we went from a 35 to a 60% profit margin at that point in time,
on a
or
portion.
over a period of time.
Yes.
So if I looked at 2019, and yes, I understand the inmate population goes up and down, but average is probably going to be fairly close between 19 and 20.
Actually, no. We moved over close to 170 prisoners. When COVID hit, we dropped down to around 80 some.
So your
So, and
prisoners was less.
for a period of time, there were,
Right.
yes.
But where I was headed with that, if I took your 2019 figure of 87,875, and I assume that you increased your profit margin from 35 to 65%, right,
Not in 2019,
in 2020,
yes.
that would indicate that you're going to increase by about 30%, what your take would be if averages were the same. You're telling me now that it was less. Well, if I added 30% to the 87,000, I don't come up to 296,000. You know, that's over 100% increase.
Well, keep in mind, a different facility. The old facility, the people didn't have, the inmates didn't have the facility to be able to purchase stuff. It wasn't available because we didn't have in-house stock. There also, the whole facility wasn't conducive to them buying a lot of the stuff that they wanted. We increased the offering. There was a whole bunch of steps involved in increasing that. It wasn't just bumping the price up. That was only one minor part of it. Making it available to them, delivering it on a consistent basis. They do hygiene, we do that every single day. So they go order what they need. If they need a bar of soap, that's every day. We do the food commissary once a week, you know, so, and then we do the e-cigs every day. We do the nicotine cups every day. Those things are all handled, I won't say differently than they were, but more efficiently than they were.
Because they weren't even allowed some of those items.
Yeah, it it all goes back to taking a look at what they needed, what was acceptable, what was a good plan on our part. We changed the e-cigs, we've always sold e-cigs, but there were problems with them, so, well, we didn't sell them for a while because there was problems with them taking apart and using the batteries and stuff. I instituted a system where they're all barcoded. We have a laptop computer and a barcode reader, every single one, and it's tied directly to our Spillman account that it knows who our inmates are. Everything is barcoded to them and barcoded back, so there's no more losing those kind of things. Now, we've got that organized, we're able to supply them. We sell $200 to $300 a day worth of those.
So they can't smoke in jail.
Well, in electronic
One of these,
cigarettes, they
yeah.
always have been able to. No matches or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's another tool that we have for disciplinary, if we need to discipline them, that's, something that we can take away.
That's where a lot of the flux is in this, is we do, if somebody does damage, does something wrong, we can sanction them and take away some stuff from them. And then we use it. Most of the reason I picked chirping to go to that last year was because, first of all, it gave them something to do while they were in their cell, they can communicate with their families. But unfortunately, the other part of it is it can be used as a tool which you can take away if they're negative behavior. So we do things to help them. We try to be good to them. We try to make them better. But if they choose not to be, I have the option to take stuff away from them.
It's also an investigative tool that all chirping, every chirp that comes in and out of there, every phone call, we have access to from an investigative standpoint.
And it has been very useful.
And they're aware of
Review those
that.
on a regular basis.
Yes.
Yes.
I require my deputies to review the video. We have pretty strict rules about nudity and stuff like that on the videos. So my deputies, when they have time, like they're in control, they can have the videos, be watching the visits, and then we look for problems with that. So we stay on top of that. We're required to do that.
Our site also does that with the incoming mail. We read all of the inmates' mail. We actually don't physically let them have the mail. We scan it to a kiosk. They can read on the kiosk. That has greatly taken down the amount of trafficking of drugs that we had in and out of the facility.
Legal mail, we have to deliver. We do that's different. But anyway.
Right.
Any other questions?
Question?
Appreciate you looking into it because of this question that comes up.
We get hit with it quite often. How did it go
Sure.
from 87,000 to $500,000?
It is tough.
And
Yeah, I understand that,
Business.
and we're more than happy to answer your question anytime. We're 100% up front on all of this stuff. Like I say, it goes to the Board of Accounts, State Board of Accounts, and welcome to show anybody on the board that wants to come over. We can actually walk you through, walk down and that kind of stuff. We cannot show that kind of thing in obviously a public forum, but yeah.
And you would be shocked what inmates are willing to spend on commissary.
Oh,
We have a couple that spend $200 or $300 a week.
or we,
I thought there was a limit. Didn't I read somewhere
there's
that
limit
were
on
limited?
certain items.
Okay,
We do limit certain items, but no, as far as
I
dollar
thought there
amounts,
was a statute of $75 a month or something that I seen.
I know of no statute. We come certainly, I've read the whole statute. I never saw it in there.
It wasn't in that, it was somewhere else I'd seen in the state.
You find that, I'd be more than happy to look at it.
All right, thank you.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate it.
Dr. Hal and Sean.
All right, thank you. Just a couple group of things. I wanted to introduce our intern for the summer. This is Darian Crafton. Darian's been with us since May. If anybody's had a chance to look at our webpage, it's completely redesigned. She did a lot of that. And she continues to do a lot of tech stuff for us as well as learn everything. She wanted to come to the meeting, see how this part works. She's just learning a little bit about public health. And also, while I'm here, I want to thank you for the remodeling permissions that we got in place. It's looking great. We're really proud of where we are. Invite you to come and take a look at it. Thank you.
Looks good over there. I've been over a couple of times. They've done a great job. So how long are you here, Darren?
I'm going to continue in the fall as well.
Okay.
She's going to stick with us through the semester on a part-time basis.
Okay.
I'd just like to comment too, I really appreciate the money spent. It's starting to look like a professional office now.
It does, I commented the other day, they have places so that everybody's not into everybody's business. I mean, they have different rooms they can go to now to be segregated, talk. People that are getting vaccines or not with people for other reasons. It's worked out well, I think. Request for use of facilities, I don't see that here.
That was just the update. Links wanted to use the parking lot. We have not heard back from them, but, I don't know what the exact date of their thing was, but they didn't have the proper insurance.
Right.
Didn't know if you wanted to approve a contingent on proper insurance paperwork, or how you would like. We just left it on there from the last month's agenda.
They had been contacted and they said they would get it to us.
That was,
You're gonna cheat Friday or something?
It's
Yeah, we
August
want to-
27th and
I was gonna
28th.
say, the last
Yeah,
week
but
in
then-
August,
Yeah, because there's not another meeting before the.
we wanna approve that contingent on insurance.
I think it set a bad precedent. They know the requirements.
Anything else? Anyone else? Doug?
Can I offer a quick thank you to the IT department on behalf of our office? Generally, they've made it super easy for our requests, and specifically Shelley came down from the child support office and said, Dave did it, and I was like, well, Dave did what? And so, over 30 years or 40 years of ISETs in child support collection, we're moving to Invest. So we have to make the documents from ISETs talk to the documents in Invest, and our preferred provider gave us a $62,000 quote to do that for us, and there were other quotes, but IT figured it out, and they did. So just amazing work and easygoing and calm, and it's an ongoing project, but we really appreciate it, so thank you.
You can look back to the screen and tell him thank you. He's watching.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Always good to get those comments. Anyone else? Dawn? Nothing? Ron, Robinson, yeah, Ron?
Just with the ready stuff, the ready project we submitted, we got about, I want to say, probably 6 projects committed to funding state already, so we're ready to move forward to the Decatur County, our fire department, Decatur Park. Excited to get those going. We continue to meet on some of the other projects. As far as business expansion and recruitment, we had a site visit on Thursday, and I've been contacted last week by another business looking to invest in Decatur County. So busy.
Tell them also, Ron, about our make our move.
Make my moves. Yes, we actually, because of the success of the first round last year, Make My Move again is the ability to kind of go out and recruit remote workers to live in Decatur County. That continued to be a success from last year. Because it was a success, the state actually took notice of it and allotted funds to allow other communities to do the same, including our community, which we were able to use the funds that we had already invested last year to use as match for funding for our next round. So we'll be actually doubling the money that we invested. So it's an application, it's a grant process, so we're going for it.
Good, thanks. Anyone else have anything? Your turn.
My duty is move to recess. I'll second.
We are recessed. Thanks.
4 o'clock today.